the last class of the American battleships. Originally 6 were planned, but only 4 were completed, with the other 2 ended up being just hulks. The first 2 entered service in 1943, the remaining 2 in 1944. The Iowa-class battleships may have been the last class of the mighty American battleships, but in a stroke of luck, all 4 still exist today, with a 100% survival rate, which is remarkably high for any ship type, let alone expensive large battleships. So in today's video, I'm going to list them from my least favorite to my favorite, along with a personal ranking out of 10 based on how much I like them. I'll try to provide as much context as I can without making each segment too long. I don't want this to drag on to a 15-20 minute video. Keep in mind this is just my opinion, and everyone's allowed to have their own opinions, and that's completely fine. So, coming in at number 4, the lead ship of the class, USS Iowa BB-61, nicknamed the Big Stick, the Grey Ghost, and the Battleship of Presidents, was the first commissioned and the last to be preserved. She was first commissioned from February 22, 1943 to February 24th of 1949, and then again from August 25th, 1951 to February 24th of 1958, and then again for a third and final time between April 28th, 1984 and October 26th, 1990. Finally, after 19 years of total active service, she was stricken from the Naval Register on March 17, 2006, the same day as her sister Wisconsin, although Wisconsin was actually preserved 5 years before being stricken. Not bad for an expensive, supposedly out-of-date battleship. She finally opened his museum in Los Angeles on July 7, 2012, just over 11 years after Wisconsin back in 2001. I've always liked Iowa, but she doesn't get the same love that the other 3 get from me. She's fine, but isn't really notable to me. The most notable thing to me is her turret explosion back in the 80s. She did many memorable things, yes, don't get me wrong, but I like Iowa the least, and if one had to go, it would be her. I'm sure many people would disagree, and that's okay. I wouldn't scrap her, but if I had to choose to get rid of one of the 4 Iowas, it would be her. I still rather her over many other American battleships, just not over her sisters. She ranks a 7 out of 10 on my personal list, but at least she still exists as a museum ship, unlike so many others who deserved it, including several foreign ships like HMS Warspite. So coming in at number 3, the second ship of this class, USS New Jersey BB-62, nicknamed the Big J and the Black Dragon, was the most decorated battleship in the history of the American Navy, and was also decommissioned the most, at 4 times in total, with Iowa and Wisconsin having 3, and Missouri having only been decommissioned twice. Big J was also the longest serving Iowa at 21 years. Big J was the firstly commissioned on May 23, 1943 to June 30, 1948, then again from November 21, 1950 to August 21, 1957, then again from April 6, 1968 to December 17, 1969. An amazingly short time for her. Then, for a 4th and final time between December 28, 1982 to February 8, 1991, before finally being stricken from the Naval Register on January 4, 1999, after 21 total years of active service. The Black Dragon opened his museum ship in Camden, New Jersey on October 15, 2001, and underwent dry docking in 2024. Of all the museum ships, they by far have the best YouTube channel, and I love watching it. In fact, I'm often listening to it while writing scripts, including this one. She's above Iowa for this reason, her being the most decorated American battleship in history, a title which will never be taken, and her being the longest serving Iowa. Overall, I do love her more than Iowa, but it's not as much as her 2 younger sisters. Although if I had to visit one right now, she'd be second, as one of her younger sisters, who ranks in at number 1, would beat her out very easily. She's better than Iowa, but I've always loved the final 2 members of the class more than most other battleships in history, although New Jersey nearly overtook the ship that comes in at number 2. I easily rank her a complicated 8.3475 out of 10 on my personal list. That number just feels right. And so coming in at number 2, the 4th ship of the class, although she was actually the 3rd to be commissioned after the construction of her older sister was delayed, USS Wisconsin BB-64, nicknamed Big Whiskey and Temper Temper, was commissioned on April 16, 1944, and was the second last battleship to be originally commissioned in the American Navy. I say originally because, of course, the Iowas were all recommissioned and decommissioned many times. She was decommissioned for the first of 3 times on July 1, 1948. She was then again commissioned on March 3, 1951 until March 8, 1958, and then she sat for 30 years, until she was recommissioned on October 22, 1988, until her third and final decommissioning on September 30, 1991. She was stricken on January 12, 1995, but readmitted on February 12, 1998, and was finally stricken for a second and final time, at least as of the making of this video, on March 17, 2006, the same day as her older sister Iowa, after a total of 14 years in active service, the lowest of any Iowa. However, she at this point was already serving as a museum, as she had become a museum ship on April 16, 2001 at Nauticus in Norfolk, West Virginia. Although she arrived there on December 7, 2000, on her 57th anniversary of her launching back in 1943 and 59th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor. Wisconsin joined a list of only a few ships worldwide that were still on their Navy's registers while being a museum ship, just like her sister Missouri was between 1957 and 1984. One of my favorite parts about Wisconsin is the iconic view of her from the city streets, which is amazing. She's always been special to me, yes. She may not be as historically significant as New Jersey, but she's more special to me. Her bow also differs from the other 3 Iowas after a collision in thick fog with the Fletcher-class destroyer USS Eaton on May 6, 1956, which destroyed most of Wisconsin's bow below second deck, and caused major damage to Eaton, but both were repaired. Wisconsin required a new bow, and got one courtesy of the unfinished hulk of her uncompleted sister, USS Kentucky. This wouldn't be notable except for a few things. Firstly, she gained the nickname USS Whiskey and Big Whiskey from this. Secondly, her new bow makes her unique from the other 3 Iowas because her bow, from the second deck down since it was replaced using Kentucky's, she became a Frankenship. She's also apparently just ever so slightly longer, but I haven't been able to find a reliable source confirming it, so I'm not going to get into the rumor mill with that. I'll let you have your own opinions. However, it was also welded onto Wisconsin, not riveted. All 4 completed Iowas used both riveting and welding, but the incomplete Illinois and Kentucky used only welding. New Jersey almost beats her out, but hasn't managed it yet. USS Wisconsin ranks a 9 out of 10 on my personal list. So, coming in at number 1, and this shouldn't be a surprise. For those who know me, this should come as no surprise. USS Missouri BB-63 Mighty Mo is not only my favorite Iowa-class battleship, but my favorite battleship of all time. She was commissioned after Wisconsin despite having the lower hull number, making her the last American battleship to be completed. She was also the one commissioned and decommissioned the least, at only 2 times. She was first commissioned on June 11, 1944, and decommissioned on February 26, 1955, the longest stretch of any Iowa class at just under 11 years. She opened as a museum in Bremerton, while in mothballs from 1957 until 1984. She was one of the few ships worldwide that were still in their Navy's registers while being museums, just like her sister Wisconsin would be between 2001 and 2006. Her second and final commissioning was on May 10, 1986, after 31 years, slightly longer than Wisconsin's 30-year gap, the largest gap of any Iowa recommissioning. She was decommissioned for the final time on March 1, 1992, as the last commissioned battleship anywhere in the world, after 16 total years of active service, the second shortest of any Iowa. Missouri was stricken from the Naval Register on January 12, 1995, and she has become a museum ship in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii since January 29, 1999, watching over the wreck of the USS Arizona. Mighty Mo is by far my favorite battleship of all time, and is, in my opinion, one of the most historic battleships we have left, the other 2 being the sole surviving dreadnought USS Texas, and the sole surviving pre-dreadnought IJN Mikasa. Being the last built American battleship, the last battleship in commission in the world, and with World War II ending on her decks back in 1945, There's just so much history to find and explore. Yes, New Jersey has more battle stars, and yes, Wisconsin has a unique bow and is part of one of the incomplete Iowas with her, but they just aren't Missouri. That's nothing against either of them. USS Mighty Mo BB-63 is by far my favorite battleship, and my second favorite ship of all time. Well, technically third, but I'll explain that in a minute. She ranks a 10 out of 10 on my personal list, and no ship besides HMCS Haida and the unfortunately scrapped almost 2 years ago, Small but Mighty Padwheel Princess, which are tied for first. At least you have all 4 Iowas, and 7 out of the 10 American fast battleships. It's much better than one or none.